How we feeling this morning? Y'all feeling good? Hey, before we get any further this morning, I just want to take a moment and honor what is appropriate for us to honor today. We celebrate a very special weekend, and it's not just so that we have a day off or so we can go to the beach or have some family time, but this weekend we celebrate those who have paid everything for us, who have given their lives so that we could be here today. Honestly, that we have a place where we can sing about Jesus and the freedom we have, and I want us to just be so grateful for the opportunity that we have that many don't. So this morning, can we just give honor to those who have given everything? In John 15, verse 13, it says, "This greater love has no one than this, that he lay down his life for his friends." And I'm honestly just so grateful and so thankful to live in a country where that is our story over and over again, that we've had so many give everything for us, that we have this opportunity. And so I just want to express so much gratitude for that. Well, we're in a series called Different. This is week 2 of our series, and if you could put a tagline to what this series is all about, it would be this: is that we are made to be different so that we can go and make a difference. And so the next few weeks will all be about that. And it doesn't take much for us to see that we are different than some of our friends or some of our family around us. We all have differences, and maybe especially when you get married, you'll notice that you're different, and that maybe your family is different. And as you go along in life, there's going to be some really important decisions that you have to make when you're going through life of deciding what your life is going to look like. And one of those decisions is what kind of milk y'all are going to get at the house. Look, you have the red cap or the dark blue cap. Don't get the skim milk. It is water. It is gross. And look, you can taste the difference. And look, you need to put every ounce of fat into that milk that you can. And that whole milk gallon jug, you could melt a stick of butter in there too. That's gross, but that is the kind of milk that you want to get. Another argument or another way that you probably know that you're different from people around you is whenever you discuss hypothetical lottery winnings that you get. You know, if you won a lot of money and you're describing what you would buy with it, and you're talking to your friends about, like, you know, I would get this house, I'd get this truck, I'd go on vacation, I'd buy my own plane and all that. And when your friends informs you that you're wrong and everything that you want, and you always have the one friend that's like, actually, you should invest that in the S&P 500 index if you really want the best return on investment there. You have that one. I'm that one friend, just so y'all know. We're obnoxious, we're annoying, I get it. I'm sorry, but you always have that one friend that's a little bit annoying and different. Here's one way that I'm different that really is noticeable. So if you text me, and you text me one-on-one, and you need something, I will text back pretty close to immediately. I will always try and get you a response. If you text me in a group chat, you will never hear from me again. I don't even care. I don't even read half the text that come through in a group chat. I don't know why. I don't pay attention to it. It doesn't worry me at all. And so if you're getting kidnapped and you text me in a group chat, you are out of luck. And I'm sorry, I just don't. But some people are different in that. I think the introverts just always try to avoid group text whenever they can. But we're all different from each other. We all have different values. We have different beliefs. We have things that we think are important that are different from each other. And if you were to arrange all those things onto a bookshelf, and you were to say, you know, this bookshelf kind of represents my life, everyone's would look a little different, but you might have some similar things on here. And so for me, a big priority and a big part of my life is my wife. This is me and Leisha. Say, aw. This is actually the day we went Facebook official. Big day, big day. For me, I like being on time to places, and so I got a clock up here. Who likes being on time? You on time or early? Oh, a lot more y'all than first. How many of you are like, I'll get there eventually, I'll get around to it, I'll stop in, don't wait up for me. You know, yes, all of y'all hold up the party all the time. But being on time is really important to me. Being on time to my job is really important. So everyone that just raised your hands the second time, if y'all don't have a job, these are really good. So get one of those if you want a job, that is. So we have different things on here. Every good American loves some coffee. And you got a coffee mug on here. Yes. And every good American has 79 of these in their cabinet. You don't know where you got them from. It's like, I don't know, they just grow, they multiply in there. It's really weird. Maybe you're in college or high school and you eat some ramen. Who likes ramen? This stuff is gross. Stop eating it. There's like 830 grams of sodium. That is disgusting. You might have some bookshelves on your book if learning is important to you and you like reading. I have a Bible in mine. This is actually, this is one of the Bibles we give away for free at Next Steps. If you want a Bible, we have these, and all these books are actually at our guest services. I sold them this morning. Or maybe you enjoy hunting. You got some camo. Any hunters in the room? Got a couple. So you have some camo, but your wife hates camo, so you got a candle in front of that. But then the candle throws off your hunting mojo, and then you got to go roll around in dirt and shower in deer urine before you ever go hunting again. The candle throws all that off for you. And so most of us have a life that we could, represent with bookshelf of things that are important to us and things that are, valuable to us, what we believe is important. And, aside from what you could put on here, there's a lot of other things that define who we are that we would say is important to us, from what we think is valuable to have in your character. Some of you might have honesty really high on here, that's just important to you to be honest. Or business owners, you might have on here that you want to treat people right. You want to be fair in your dealings with people, and you want to make sure that you respect all of your clients. And so if you are a business owner, you might somehow have on here that you just want to be fair to everyone. Or you might have on here that it's just really important for you to have good friends that you can enjoy, that you can invest in them, and you have good friends, and that's really important to you. And how we organize our bookshelf and what we put on here and how we organize our life says a lot about who we are. It says a lot about what's important to us. It says a lot about what we expect out of life and what we expect out of others. And it's easy to see that we all might be different from each other. But overall, again and again, how we organize our life is very important. And sometimes it can be awkward when we have values that are different from other people. When we value honesty and we have a lot of people that around us that don't value that. Or, we value having integrity in our business, and it might be frustrating for us when there's a competitor that doesn't have as much integrity, that they are always messing up with their clients and maybe skirting the law, and it bothers us, but we don't really know what to do about it. Or it might be awkward when we're at work and there's a joke going around the office and we don't know if we want to take part in it or if we should step back or if we should laugh or just ignore it and walk away. And we don't really know what to do with that when we value that, but the people around us don't. Or one of our friends, when we used to hang out with them and go and have some late nights and they still want to go and do that, but your life is changing a little bit. You don't want to set that example for your kids, and so you don't really know what to do with that. And there's just some awkward moments in life, and it can cause some tension, it can cause some frustration when we have these values that they're just different from everyone around us. And this morning, I want to help us explain why we feel that tension, why we can feel like outsiders on the inside of a different culture, because it's really easy sometimes to feel like we are outsiders. You can feel outsider at work, you can feel outsider at home, you can feel outsider with your friends. No matter where you're at, you can feel like an outsider on the inside of any culture. And it's really hard for us to put words of why it is. I'm just trying to do what I think is right. I'm just trying to be a man of integrity. I'm just trying to be full of character. I'm just trying to be honest. And oftentimes it creates some tension for us. And Gandhi actually said this, I think is helpful for us to see, is that your beliefs become your thoughts. And so he starts off with this, is your mindset sets up a lot for your life. And so your beliefs become your thoughts become your words become your actions, and then your actions become your habits become your values, and your values become your destiny. So what starts out is our beliefs, and what we think is important, and our thoughts ultimately becomes our values, which determines our destiny. And so the reason that you can feel that tension around people, the reason that you can feel that awkwardness around people at work is that you just have a completely different destiny than everyone around you. And you would be stressed out with what everyone else is stressed out about. You would be anxious with what everyone else is anxious about. You would be worried about that. You would be depressed about that. But you are too busy because you have a different playing field, that you are living a different kind of life. You are living a life that God designed for you because you have a different destiny than everyone else around you. Before Gandhi said it like that, God actually wrote about it in the Bible. In Romans, we read this: do not be conformed to this world, so be different than this world, and be transformed by the renewal of your mind. Again, it's a mindset thing, it's a belief thing, it's a thought thing. That by testing you may discern what is the will of God, what is good and acceptable and perfect. And so if you renew your mind, if you get your mind right, your life is going to follow. And instead of being worried with what everyone else is saying, instead of being worried with what everyone else is thinking and doing, you're going to be so concerned with the will of God, you're not even going to be worried about all that other stuff. You're going to be able to see God's plan for your life. You're going to be able to live in such a full life. And it's going to be different than other people around you. And there might be tension, there might be awkward moments, but God has so much more for you when we live life with a different kind of mindset. And it might be easy to think like, well, okay, how do I do that? Do I just stop thinking? Do I change how I'm thinking? What do I do? And the answer comes to us in the book of 1 Peter, which we're kind of going through in this series. And in 1 Peter, it says this. It says, therefore, preparing your minds, again, it's a mindset thing. You gotta get your thoughts right for action. And being sober-minded, so you gotta get clarity. You gotta get some clarity of your mind. Set your hope fully on the grace that will be brought to you at the revelation of Jesus Christ. And so think this way. Get your mind set up this way. To set your hope fully on the grace that's brought by Jesus. And so what God is saying is, instead of putting God on your bookshelf next to everything else, instead of having work here, God here, your marriage here, and everything else you got going on, instead of doing all that, change your perspective from thinking that you are ordering your life and that this bookshelf is yours to realizing that this bookshelf is all God's. Your life is all God's. And so instead of setting your work next to God, you're setting your work onto God. Instead of setting your marriage next to God, you're setting your marriage on God. Instead of setting every hobby you have next to God, saying, I'll go do the God thing on Sunday, but then I'll go have my hobbies. Say, even my hobbies, I want to put those into God, and change your mindset from thinking that God wants to live beside everything else to knowing that God wants your whole life. He will not settle for anything less than all of you. It's not about convenience. He does not want just a piece of you that you can set beside everything else and pick up when you want, when it's convenient. He wants every part of your life, and he wants you to set everything onto him instead of setting everything onto you. And through that, when we set our hope onto there, when we set our faith onto God, when we set everything onto God, we live a completely different life than we ever anticipated. It is so much more meaningful. It is so much more full. And it's way better than anything we ever imagined. So God's plan for us is hey, don't treat me like anything else, but instead give me your whole life, that you can set every piece of your life onto me. And what happens then when we begin to set everything onto him is that things begin to change in our life. And those are really, really good changes, but sometimes they can become more awkward for us. And some of those changes, it can be difficult to deal with, but he goes on to explain what happens is that as obedient children, do not be conformed to the passions of your former anger. So all this we were talking about is that so if you obey God and you don't live how you used to live, but as he who called you is holy, you also be holy in all your conduct. Since it is written, you shall be holy, for I am holy. And this phrase was difficult for me for most of my life to understand because I always read it as if God was saying, hey, you go work on yourself, and when you're good and ready, then you can come and show up to me, and then we can talk, and we can connect then. And I always read this as if God was waiting for us to be holy and waiting just any moment just to tear us apart. Like, hey, you put that down. Hey, stop doing that. Hey, stop that. And that's how we read and live most of our life, is thinking that God is just waiting for me to clean up my act so I can come to him. But when we try and do that, when we try to make ourselves holy, when we try to live like this and holy, it just means set apart. It just means if we can just be really simple, it just means different in a way that God designed us to be different. Is that when we try and do that on ourselves, we get weird. Y'all met people that are different, but they're like the weird kind of different. Come on, y'all got those friends. They're like super spiritual, and you don't know why, and like they're just kind of like a weird different. Y'all got those weird friends. Like, all right. So you got to eat. You go to a restaurant, and it comes time where you're about to go get your food, and someone says, well, hey, should we pray? And there's a guy that's way too excited to pray for the food. Come on, let's bring back any memories for anyone. And he's like, all right, let's all hold hands. You're like, y'all's hands are sweaty. Like, why am I? And so you hold hands of like strangers. You're like, this is weird. And he starts praying, but his prayer turns into like a sermon, and his voice is changing, and it's getting deeper. And he starts saying stuff you never heard him say before. He's like, oh, Father, come inhabit this food we're about to eat. You're like, what does that mean? And you're like, we're just at the Chinese buffet, bro. Like, but he's going to bless every single plate at the beginning of those lines. And you're like, this is getting weird. And he's going, if it's up to him, he's going to bless all the food at the whole strip mall. Everyone's going to be eating blessed food the rest of the month if it's up to him. And like 45 minutes later, after his prayer, y'all are done. And you're like, that was just kind of weird. And we want to follow God's will, and we want to be holy, but we don't want to be different like that. We don't want to be weird. And so what I've come to realize that this holiness means, that it talks about, is that it just means following God as close as we can. So in that verse it says, you shall be holy, for I am holy. And it's kind of older word for us to really see and recognize, but shall just means it will be inevitable if the following happens. And so you shall be holy. It is inevitable for you to become holy because you are following God who is holy. And so God is not saying, hey, you go and be different, you go be weird, and you go be holy on your own. He's just saying, hey, if you follow me, I'll take care of the rest. If you follow me, I'll make sure that your life is changing. If you follow me as close as you can, then you don't have to worry about being different. You don't have to worry about being holy, because I'm going to make you change. I'm going to make you holy. I want to make you different than people around you. And you're going to live such a better life that way. But sometimes it will cost us still. Sometimes it still costs us to be different. And even if you're not weird, it still can cost us to be holy. The Bible is filled with illustrations and stories of this, and people who decided they wanted to be different, and what happened to them. And some of them got into trouble. And one of the more familiar stories is in the book of Daniel. You have Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego. You might have heard this story if you've been around church at VBS or watched some VeggieTales or something like that. And Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, they lived in a time and a kingdom underneath King Nebuchadnezzar. And King Nebuchadnezzar had set up a statue of himself made of gold. And he told everyone, he said, you will bow down when you hear the music that I play. And so life goes on like that, but it's brought to his attention that people, there's 3 guys refusing to bow down. And the deal he made with people is, you'll bow down or I'll kill you. And so we have 3 men who are different than everyone else, and they're outsiders on the inside of this other culture. and that they're living differently than everyone else. And as the story goes, as we know it, is that King Nebuchadnezzar will throw them into a fire, attempting to burn them alive. And then we tell the story to our kids before bedtime. It is so creepy. You should not tell this story. Actually, you should tell the story if they aren't listening to you. You can say, hey, if you don't listen to me, I learned from the Bible what to do to people. You tuck them in really tight thermostat, they will freak out so fast. But you shouldn't do that to them. That's mean. But in between the moment that we know of him throwing them into the fire and him finding out that they're not worshiping, we have this meeting that we see the notes from, and it's in Daniel chapter 3. And so he says, I will give you one more chance to bow down and worship the statue I made when you hear the sound of the musical instruments. But if you refuse, you'll be thrown immediately into the blazing furnace. And then what God will be able to rescue you from my power? And what he doesn't know then, but we'll find out soon, is that the God that can rescue them from his power is our God, Jesus. And what we find out over and over again, that our God rescues us when we refuse to live like everyone else. And what he finds out, what King Nebuchadnezzar finds out, is that our God has the final word. Our God has the last say. Our God has the final authority on our life. Not a king, not a boss, not a family member, not a friend. The only person that has the last word on your life is our God, Jesus. So this morning, I want to talk about what it means when we refuse. If you refuse to live like everyone else, if you refuse to live how you used to, if you refuse to live how your past said you would, if you refuse to listen to everyone else, if you refuse to waste another day, what does life look like for you? But what God proves over and over again is that if you refuse, he will be with you. If you refuse, he will be with you. Now, practically speaking, I want to look at 3 areas of our life that truly begin to change when we refuse to live like everyone else says, and we live how it looks like to set everything onto God. Because I think that things will tangibly begin to change in our life. First one is this: is our time. Is our time. And look, I'm not telling you how you spend your time. I'm not making any assumptions about you or your life. I'm just saying, hey, would you look into your calendar, into your schedule, and would you see if this might be the case for you? And so how Americans spend most of their time, and how we are taught to spend most of our time, is that we work our 40, 50, 60 hours a week at work. A lot of us might have a side job or a business we're trying to get up off the ground, so it requires more time for us over and over again. And we spend that time, and then we have to come home, and we're tired because we've been around people. And if you're an introvert, I get this. If I'm around people for like an hour, I need 3 hours of being around no one. I don't want to see anyone. I don't want to talk to y'all. Don't group text me. I'm going to ignore you anyway. And so if you're an introvert, I get that, but you spend your time at work, and then you go work out, or you go fishing for a little bit to relax, and then you got some chores around the house to do, and then you got some other stuff that you just got to take care of real quick, and then you spend some time on Facebook. And if you were to break down how you spend all that time, a lot of it is focused on ourselves, and we are so exhausted at the end of the day. We're so exhausted at the end of the week that we sometimes don't have all of the energy we really should to spend with our family. So our family and our kids, our marriage often gets what's left over of all of our energy. And then after that, we have what's left for God, which is usually not much. And so I'm not saying that this is true for you. I'm saying if you were to look at your schedule, would this be true? Would it look like this? Would it look like me first, and then others, and then God? And look, I'm not talking quantity of time. I'm talking quality of time. You're probably going to spend a lot of time at work if you want to be successful and if you want to provide for your family. So I get that. I'm not talking quantity. I'm talking quality, though. Is when you're done with all that stuff that you love to do you have any energy left for your family? Do you have any free time left to spend with your kids? Because if you live with me first and others second, rarely you have any time left for God. But when we begin to set our time onto God, and when we begin to set all of that, it changes the flow from me, others, God, to God, others, me. And when we put God first, all of our time will become way more meaningful and way more useful and way more fulfilling and way more beneficial. Because when we put God first and we say, God, I want you to speak to me first today, then that begins to flow into other people. And our marriage will begin to be so much more filled with life because we're hearing words from our Creator who has a purpose for us, who has a great destiny for us, and has great plans for us. And that begins to flow into our marriage, and then that begins to flow into ourselves. And when we spend time this way, we still find that others are getting great quality time, and we still have enough time for ourselves. We just have to be willing to reverse it. And it's so hard to say, well, I barely have enough time as it is. I don't know how I'm going to fit everything else into here. But over and over again, God proves if we refuse to live how everyone else does, and if we refuse to live how other people tell us, then He will be with us. And at United, we want to make this really practical for you. As a church, we want to make this easy for you because we know that this can be tough. And so we have resources for all these areas of if you need to work on your time with God, we have free Bibles, we have reading plans that can get you jump started. We have so many resources for you. If you're trying to put God first, you're trying to set your time onto God, we have so many resources for you. And then to focus on others. And we have so many Fort Dover events coming up that allows you to do this, that allows you to invest into other people. We have 3 coming up this month. We're partnering with Dover High School for their graduation, the park there. We're partnering with Firefly to clean up there, and we pick up all the supplies left by the people. And it's the craziest thing I've ever seen. But we pick up the supplies and the leftover tents because people don't even know where they're at anymore after they leave Firefly. But they leave all their stuff, and so we go and get it, and a group and an organization cleans it up and then is able to give it or sell it or trade it to homeless people who need it, and they have a pride when they get their new belongings. And so we're partnering with that coming up, and then we're also going to be providing some mulch and new playground for some communities in our area that we want their kids to have a great summer and be able to spend some time outside. And so we just always are trying to provide ways that you can give your time to other people. And for yourself, we're giving everyone a free vacation today. I'm just kidding, but that would be nice, isn't it? But when we put our time like this, God, others, me, it'll be so much more fulfilling. Next one is money. And look, I'm not making any assumptions about your checkbook. I'm not saying anything about your bank accounts. But just like your calendar, I just want to invite you to look at your calendar and how that breaks down. I want you to look at your checkbook and your bank account, how that breaks down. Because the way we're taught, the way Americans are taught is you spend first, so you go get the house, you go get the truck, you go get everything you want. All that stuff is good, all that stuff is great. And then you save second, and so so studies show if you save $1,000 a day, you can pay for your kids' college. So you save second, and then you give last. And that's the order of life that we're taught is you spend, you save, and then you give. And what happens is that just like that, at the end of our week, when we don't have much time or energy left, at the end of the week, we don't have much money left to give to God. And so we might try and help, or we might try and chip in a little bit, but ultimately we find that we never have enough. And when we live me, others, God in this way, when we spend first, save second, and give to others, and then we say eventually, you know what, I can tithe eventually. When we live this way, we will never have enough. It will never spread far enough. It will never fulfill us the way that money should. And so but when we set that on God and we say, you know what, I'm going to live God, others, me. I'm going to tithe first. I'm going to see what God can do with my 90%. And then I can help out others. I can save. And then I'll spend last. We find that our money goes so much further. I cannot explain it. I do not know how God does more with our 90% than we can do with 100%. But He does. Because over and over again, God shows that if we refuse to live like everyone else, He will be with us, and He provides and He blesses those who refuse to live this way and who choose to live this way. So when we put God first, others second, and me last, we find that we are spending our money in such a more meaningful way, and we are way more fulfilled. Last one is this: is our focus. It's our focus. And here's kind of what we're taught from the time we're young all the way through our life is you always got to look out for number one. You always got to take care of yourself. You always got to make sure that you're taken care of. And so because we're taught that, we will usually do whatever it takes to make sure that we are going to win ahead of everyone else. It doesn't matter what it costs our family. It doesn't matter what it costs our employees. It doesn't matter what it costs our coworkers. If we're looking out for number one, we're going to make sure that we win. And usually it costs people a whole lot. And there's nothing like a checkbook or a calendar or a schedule that can really help us break this focus down. But you just ask yourself, how much time do I think about putting me first? How much time do I think about others? And then what's my focus on God look like? When we live me, others, God, just like with our money and our time, seems like we always run out right after me. Right after we've looked out for ourselves, we put ourselves first. It's like we don't even have the energy. We don't even have the bandwidth to look out for others and God, because me first crowds out every other arena of life. And me first is miserable. If you have trouble with relationships, or you have trouble in your marriage, it can usually come back down to this: is where is your focus at? And over again, me first is miserable, but if we live how God says to live, we say, you know what, first I'm going to focus on God, and then I'll focus on others, and then I'll focus on myself, we'll find that we are way more fulfilled. We have such a more meaningful life, and it's better than anything we ever thought possible. And when we put God first, it leaves so much more room for others and even ourselves in our life. But when we put me first, it crowds out every single arena of our life. But if we refuse to live how everyone else says, and we choose to live how God says, He will be with us. That story I read earlier of Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego and King Nebuchadnezzar, the story goes on that after that meeting, the three guys, they still refused to worship. They still refused to do what everyone else said to do. They still refused to live their life like everyone else. And so King Nebuchadnezzar follows through with his word, and he ties them up and he throws them into the furnace in an attempt to kill them, attempt to burn them. But God comes through just like He always says He will. And Jesus shows up in that moment and rescues them from the furnace. And King Nebuchadnezzar is stunned. He doesn't know what to do. He doesn't know what to say. And so he pulls them out of the furnace, and he gets them all together. And he has one more meeting with them that we see the notes from as well. And Nebuchadnezzar answered, and he said to them this, after that happened, he said, "Blessed be the God of Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego." So he actually, because they refused to live like everyone else, it actually got them more respect. He said, "Blessed be the God who has sent His angel and delivered His servants, who trusted in Him and set aside the king's command." They didn't listen to me. And they yielded up their bodies rather than serve and worship my God, any God except their own God. Therefore I make a decree: any people, nation, and language that speaks anything against the God of Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego shall be torn limb from limb, and their houses laid in ruin. It's still not a kid's story, y'all. I would not read that to your kid. He's just the kind, he's barely saved. You know, we got a bunch of those at United, like, they come worship, but they'll still hurt you out in the parking lot, you know. He's like barely saved, but he said, but don't miss this. He says, "For there is no other God who is able to rescue in this way." For there's no other God who is able to rescue in this way. And in the first meeting, he said this. He said, "No God can rescue you from my power." And in the second meeting, he says, "There is only one God that can do this, and it's our God, Jesus." And over again, Jesus shows that if we refuse to live like everyone else, he will be with us. And this morning, that is the God that we serve, that a king would say, no other God could do this except the God, Jesus, that they serve. There's no other God except the God that we serve that can rescue us from any situation. So your boss doesn't have the final say. Your family doesn't have the final say. Your friends don't have the final say. God has the final say because he is with us. And this morning, I believe that there are some people that you're tired of me first, and you want to live life God's way. And you're saying, I'm tired of setting things on me. They always mess up. They always fail. I always get weird with it. I want to live life God's way. I'm going to set every portion of my life onto him. So if you would you mind bowing your head and closing your eyes just so I can speak to some people specifically in here this morning? This morning, if you have never tried God first, if you never bought into it and you always thought that it was kind of weird to go to church and you just never know what you really thought about it. But this morning, God is speaking to you and you're saying, I can't live how I am anymore. And for the first time, you want to step into a new way of living, and you want to set your hope for the first time onto God, and you want to change your life. You want to reorder your priorities, and you want to change everything. You want to see God change everything in you. And for the first time, you want to make that kind of commitment. Would you raise your hand this morning? I just want to know who I'm praying for. That's it. Keep them high. Keep them high. Would you just raise your hand? If that's you, you can put your hand down. You can just pray something like this. Jesus, this morning, I see how you have rescued me like no one else could. I see that you have paid a way through your sacrifice to live a life that I never dreamt possible. This morning, God, I give my life to you, and I accept your grace through your death on the cross this morning, and I give my life to you. This morning, if maybe you have lived for Jesus, but you have lost your priorities along the way, or you've kind of messed it all up, and you got others first, and then you tried God first, but you're back to me first, and you're just not sure what to do. But this morning, you want to try again to live for God, and you want to put God first as top priority in your life. Would you just raise your hand if that's you? That's great. That's great. Keep your hand up. Keep your hand up. If that's you, would you just pray this prayer? You can pray something like this. God, this morning I'm gonna try again. Would you give me the strength to live for you wholly? May I set all of my hope, all that I am, onto you instead of setting it onto myself. This morning I give everything to you. This morning I just want to pray for everyone. God, would you give us all the strength to live for you, to put you first and then others and then ourselves last? Would you give us the strength to set our life onto you? In Jesus' name, amen.